actually learning that there was no destination was one of my personal development learnings that I needed to attain, because I always thought I'm going to be happy when I get to. I'm going to be satisfied with myself when I'm finally doing this or at this place, or I've achieved something or I've obtained something. And then there was finally that realization and knowingness that it's all the journey. All of it. It's just the journey.
This is the Energy Within podcast, all about accessing, nurturing, and building your energy and confidence so that you can design your life the way you want. My name is Carrie Jokala. I am your host. I am a Reiki practitioner, a fitness instructor, a wife, a mom to 2 little boys, and this episode is with Janessa Finley, who is trained in a modality you probably never heard of. This modality is called healing from the body level up. She refers to it often as HBLU. And what I really like about everything that's involved with this is that it takes a very holistic, very involved approach at healing the whole person. There's the physical level, there's the spiritual level, there's the mental and emotional level, there's all aspects. We talk about so many different things in this episode. And even though we may have jumped back and forth a little bit between some of the physical things and then some of the mental and spiritual things, I feel like we touched on a lot of important aspects that you need to hear. We talk about the enneagram. We talk about detoxing and using non-toxic products. We talk about connecting with yourself on a soul level and some pretty awesome ways that you can do that where you don't need to question yourself. I'll let Janessa explain all about it. I'm really excited for you to hear this one. I can't wait to hear your feedback. If something in this episode speaks to you, please go ahead and share it and tag me, tag Janessa, and let us know. I won't make you wait any longer. Here we go. Well, Janessa, I'm so excited to have you here and to talk about everything that you do. This is going to be so awesome. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for having me, Carrie. I'm delighted to join you.
Why don't you start by explaining who you are and what you do?
For sure. So my name is Janessa Finley, and I am an energy psychologist. I practice specifically the modality called healing from the body level up. I also am a functional medicine specialist and a detox specialist. So really focusing on supporting the physical body in addition to tapping into our energy system and interrupting people's patterns that really create some of those self-defeating behaviors. Also, anywhere where we feel stuck in our life, HBLU is amazing at interrupting those patterns that are vexing for us. We are those pattern beings.
Yeah.
Our behavior just happens in a loop.
I feel like a lot of us are extra stuck these days for multiple reasons, but
I agree with you. I feel like last year for 2020, it seemed to really go one of 2 ways for most of the people that I've encountered. And there's either been lots of personal growth through that trying time or lots of feeling very stuck.
Yeah. I feel like at the beginning of that for me, I was on a path of like the spiritual and personal growth and all of that at the beginning. And then the longer it went on, the more I started to go back down the other way. It's hard with little kids too. So that makes a big difference.
It really does. It truly does. I can really relate. I feel as though in the beginning, the pause, they call it the great pause. I'm like, ooh, a pause. I get to take a little bit of a break. Life's been really busy. This is cool. And then I I didn't take a break so much from my personal development that I really focused on, much like you talked about. So I'm like, this is great. And then I got to the point where I'm like, I don't know, I feel like this is really leading to stagnation, which is what I really focus on
Right.
with my clients is, where do you feel stagnant? I'm like, it's time for me to pivot. And then the pivot happened.
That was a big theme last year too, pivoting. So
Absolutely.
this modality, healing from the body level up, as I'm sure most people have not heard of that before. So is there an easy way that you can kind of explain a little bit of what it is and how it works?
Yeah, I can. So HBLU is a holistic psychotherapy system that is reproduced and been studied at length by Dr. Judah Swack, who created it, to make sure that her results were reproducible and lasting. And so what it does is clears those mental, emotional, physical, and spiritual blocks that we have to success. And it integrates so many different aspects: the biomedical science, psychology, spirituality, applied kinesiology, hypnosis, neurolinguistic programming, and other energy psychology techniques that she had approved by the people who created them to integrate into her work. And so it results in people getting unstuck, eliminating that struggle that they feel in life with whatever goals they may be trying to reach. And it also is holistic. So we believe that when you heal at that body level, then the rest of the levels of our being, the conscious, unconscious, and spiritual levels, also get the healing.
That is perfect, because that is exactly what my message that I've been trying to get across lately has been all about, is that you've got to take care of all of those aspects, including the physical. I think so often people get into this spiritual and emotional healing, which is all great, but if your body's not where it needs to be for you, there can still be a lot of issues, and it can be hard to move forward without having that whole person approach.
It really makes a huge difference. All of our levels, have to communicate together. They have to work together. And you can't leave one lagging behind, because when you do, that aspect of your being stagnates, and it does, just like you said, it affects all the other levels as well.
Yeah. This modality sounds very, very involved. This is just a more of a personal question, I guess, but is it a very long training that you need to go through? Is it something continuous, or just, a long initial training? How does that work?
Well, it depends upon how many levels of HBLU you want to be trained in.
Okay.
And I realized very early on I wanted it all. And so there's 6 different levels. And then there's also what is called the postgraduate. So each level is a week of, when I did it, in classroom training, which has now been moved to online. And I think the scheduling has been shifted around a little bit. But I can tell you, I have had hundreds of hours of training, classroom and virtually. And so it is a very, in-depth training process, which has been great too, because all of the training that I was able to receive was directly from Dr. Schwack. And so learning from, the person who created and really honed in the art that is this modality.
That's awesome. And you're so much like me in the way that you have been bringing up certain things that you do and have experienced. I'm the same way. I'm like, I'm going all in if I'm doing this. We're not just doing pieces. We're going to do it all.
Yeah. Well, like we just talked about too, is if you truly believe in that holistic approach, and to not do all of the different modules of her training, you're not able to give your clients the full, package. You can't get to everything with them. So I felt like it just didn't align with me and my beliefs of who I am. Like, if I'm going to come in and come from that holistic position, I needed to have all of the pieces to deliver.
Mm-hmm. Is there an order that you typically go in with clients, where you're going to start here and then transition here, or is it dependent upon the individual? What does that look like with clients?
I love this question. So we go in what we call as priority order.
Okay.
So we honor that we're all layered onions, and you can't get to the core of the onion without peeling out off the outside.
And now I'm thinking about Shrek, but go on.
I know, right? So in order to identify what is the outside layer or what is the priority, we use muscle testing or that applied kinesiology.
Okay.
And so for people who are not familiar with what muscle testing might be, we bypass the conscious thinking brain, because if we consciously knew what it was that we needed to shift or do differently or learn, we would have it handled. We would, I mean, with internet the way it is today, jump on Google, find your solution, and you'd be on your way. But with the full holistic healing methodology, we want to get the information from our subconscious. We want to get the information from our soul. We want to get information about that spiritual energy that affects us, but we may not be able to tangibly see it, but we definitely feel the effects of it. So muscle testing allows us to ask a question bypassing the conscious brain, send that message into your deepest wisdom, higher self, and then the nervous system communicates with your muscular system. And if the statement is not true for your being at all levels, then the nervous system essentially is like flipping a fuse. It blows out and your muscle response is weak.
Okay.
Or if it's true to the whole being, then your muscle response is strong. And so people are able to self-muscle test. And so for my services being virtually, I have people self-muscle test their way through all of our sessions. And we rely on that guidance from the deepest wisdom to show us, what is your priority? What is your priority goal? What do you need to focus on first to get to that next layer? And what is that pattern? You know, if it's a trauma or if it's personality structure, what is the pattern that we need to address in that outer priority layer to move forward? So all of our sessions are really self-directed by the individual identifying their own priority, not by thinking though, but through muscle testing.
Okay. So I don't know if I'm on the right track or not, but there was something that my Reiki teacher had us do at one point where it was, you had to like make a circle with your finger and then try to break your fingers apart versus, you know, if it was a yes or a no. And I forget which way it was. I think yes was that you couldn't break through, and if it was a no, you could. Is that what it is, or is it something similar to that, or?
You are 100% on track. Yeah, that's one of the many ways there are to muscle test.
Okay, so there's multiple
That's exactly
ways?
what it is.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, there's a Stand-in Sway. If any of your listeners are interested in learning more about this, there's a Stand-in Sway method where you get to fully remove the conscious mind because you can stand there, and then the muscles that come into play with it are in the calf. And so then you'll feel the energy sway you forward or sway you back.
Okay.
And so that's where I often suggest people start, because they're not having the conscious message of move my finger or move a body part. They can just stand there and be in that open state to receive.
Mm-hmm. I did feel like the more I tried to do it and the longer I was trying to do that and ask myself questions, the more I was starting to get a little bit in my own way, I think.
Yeah. With some of those methods where you are moving a part of your body, people tend to question it more than when they're able to just stand there and be in that open state. They're like, did I do that? Am I controlling this?
I also have noticed, just personally, especially in recent years, not even just recent months, but recent years, if I say something or I'm trying to make a statement about something and it's not 100% resonating with me, or it's not in alignment with who I want to be or what I present, I have a hard time saying it, or at least saying it authentically. Like even something like that, I've noticed, like, I don't know if that's anything you notice with your clients or that you've noticed for yourself, but even something like making a statement makes a difference for me.
Can you explain it again?
So if I were to commit to something or say that I really did want to follow this certain path or go down this road for whatever reason, but it wasn't truly something that I wanted to do or that I felt aligned with, it would be hard for me to make that statement and say, yeah, I want to do that. It would probably come out as like, yeah, I'll do that. Versus, yeah, let's go do it. I don't know if I'm explaining it right, but like, I feel like my gut tells me like what you're saying, what you're committing to is not in alignment with you. It's not a hard yes. And I'd prefer that you say no, but I guess you're going to say yes. So it's going to come out this way.
Yeah, people can feel the energy behind the level of congruency with a statement. And it's interesting that you brought up your gut too, that you follow your gut. Because with the personality structure, with the enneagram that we work with, there are several different things that factor in. And there are the gut points, the people who follow their gut, the feelers, the heart points, they are, follow their feelings or emotions, and then the head points, and they follow their logic.
Okay.
So each person has their own guidance system too of where that comes from, but you can feel that energy within yourself of when something really truly aligns. I think there is a book. I do not remember the title of it right off the top of my head. But essentially the point is, if it's not a hell yes, it's a no.
Yeah. I think I've been getting that specific message actually in the last couple of days when I've done some card pulls. Like, yeah, if it's not a hell yeah, don't do it. Speaking of the Enneagram, I would love to ask you some questions about that and have you dig into that a little bit. I have, of course, heard of it, and I have tried to figure out what I am. I think I'm a 2, but I'm not sure. Do you guys have your own like tests that people do to figure out what their Enneagram is, or do you recommend a certain one that's already in existence?
We do. We have a test that we recommend called muscle testing.
Gotcha.
So,
okay.
Yeah, it's
I didn't realize that was
approach.
connected. Okay.
Yeah, it can be connected to anything that you want to find out about yourself. But I will explain to you specifically why we recommend muscle testing. And there are so many different tests out there. So people who are familiar with the Enneagram are well aware that you can take so many different tests online. Some you can pay for, some are free. And it will give you multiple results of what you could possibly be, with some being more likely, and so on. And so with HBLU, we believe that the Enneagram, or our personality structure, is actually imprinted on our soul at conception. And so we want that information from our soul and not our conscious thinking mind, which is why we rely on the muscle testing to identify where people center on the Enneagram versus the online tests where it's a conscious perception of yourself and what you see yourself doing. And so a lot of people will take those tests and say, oh, I already found out my Enneagram type. And then we start with our priority, like we talked about, in getting the soul all nice and happy and in its best condition or constituted to receive energy, healing, and self-healing. And then we will ask where they center on the Enneagram, and it'll be a different number than what they typed out on the conscious test that they took. The Enneagram is so in depth, and it's such an amazing tool once you dive into it, because there's characteristics that you take on during times of stress, and there's other characteristics from a different Enneagram type that you take on during times of growth and elation. And so there's so much crossing over in the Enneagram that is a huge reason why people, they may only resonate and see themselves consciously with those characteristics that they have in times of growth or elation. Like they only want to see the good in themselves. Hello, ego. And then also there are people who may be in a constant state of stress. And so they just see the other stress characteristics in themselves, and they'll mistype themselves when in actuality, they're a whole different type, and they just have focused too much on one aspect of their personality.
Okay. That makes a lot of sense. And I really like that you go in and look for it from the soul level. I think that's so important, that more people, we start realizing that there is that soul connection there, and that's where we need to source everything from, and that we can connect with it. We can get answers from our soul level. It's not just what's going on in our conscious minds.
Absolutely. And I know people, muscle testing is not the only method. People are accessing information from their soul through some breathing techniques and meditation. I personally, being an Enneagram 1, if there's any Enneagram 1s out there, you know that you want to be efficient, you want to get it done, you want the fastest way possible. So I really appreciate muscle testing because you get that answer instantaneously.
Yeah.
Important to know what questions to ask, because muscle testing is really only as accurate as the questions that you're asking. But you do get that answer right away, and that I deeply appreciate.
So how does knowing your Enneagram number, what type you are, how does that help with the energy healing or your confidence levels, things like that?
Well, there's so much to talk about with that question. That's an amazing question to unpack. So first of all, there's the awareness of self, right? You start to understand yourself better. And if you learn all of the different enneatypes, then you start seeing the fact that there are 9 main different filters that people view the world from. They have different fears, they have different motivators. And you can begin to see other people's perspectives and also be able to respond and engage with them in a way that's nurturing of that conversation, nurturing of that relationship. That's from the interpersonal relationship aspect. And on an intrapersonal relationship aspect, just the knowledge alone of learning more about yourself cultivates so much more self-forgiveness, understanding, compassion, that there's not something, necessarily wrong with you or at fault with you. Like, this is your programming that you were given, and there's so much we can learn from it. And so with Dr. Judah Swack's original research with the Enneagram, she created a process through using stories, essentially these stories that are imprinted on our soul, which she calls Enneagram wounds, that we're able to identify with the story, the behaviors of how we compensate for it. Because, everyone, if you ask them a characteristic about their personality that they dislike, they can usually give you several different answers.
Mm-hmm.
And we also tend to hear, and I know I said it for many years, like, I can't help it, I was born this way. I can't tell you probably how many times I told my parents that, like, you want me to be more patient? I can't help it. I was born this way. I'm just an impatient person. But once you identify with those stories and the way that you compensate, you're able to peel out that energy and rewrite the story, transforming that energy from the soul and allowing it to come back into the service of your soul, and then use it in a way that serves your highest and greatest good. There's so much that we can take from the Enneagram to transform our own being. The more we are comfortable in being who we are, the more confidence we have, and the better our interactions and relationships are with everyone around us.
Yes. I love that statement so much. And yeah, just another big message that I want more people to understand, that when you're just perfectly okay with who you are and you're comfortable being authentically you, and you don't have to try so hard. Like, things get easier, relationships get easier, going after your goals gets easier. So once you understand yourself and you accept yourself, then it's easier to take those steps forward. Doesn't mean that everything's going to be automatically perfect, obviously, but it helps to lighten the load a little bit,
It lightens the load. I can't even think of a better way to describe exactly what walking through the essence process and transforming some of these layers does. Even with just working through one story, one layer, say that they are lighter. They feel lighter.
Oh, wow.
And they feel so much more relaxed. Yeah. And so it's not that, it's no longer a struggle or wrestling with willpower, that you see that thing in yourself and you want to grow in it and you want to evolve, but it's within a matter of, minutes, really, when you look at the grand scheme of life, matter of minutes within a session that you're able to transform that and truly feel lighter because you're not carrying around the story that isn't actually who you are at the true essence of your soul.
That's amazing. That is so amazing. So if we go back a little bit to what we were talking about before with taking care of the body, you mentioned being a detox specialist. So how does that come into play? What does that type of detox look like with you?
It is a heavy metal detox. Honestly, I use it in coordination with functional medicine. So even with the functional medicine approach, we believe that there's a priority to the healing of our physical bodies. And truly to heal, we need to start with the cells having oxygen and then removing infection and then the detox coming in throughout that process. So I prefer not to start people with detox unless, when I look at their blood labs, if that happens to be their priority, then I do. But it is a 3-stage detox process that prepares the cells to detox by opening the pathways from the liver and the kidneys, the pathways that you're going to be using to remove those toxins from the body. And then we move into detoxing the body cells and pulling those heavy metals, the general toxins, our hygiene products and our cleaning products. And there's so many toxins in the world around us in the air and water, even the water that we shower in. We have more of those toxins coming into our being than what we can drink in a day. So I love people using the RO systems and drinking that healthy water and doing those things, changing their hygiene products and the things that they can do for themselves, because there's so many toxins in the world that we're exposed to support our immune systems that are able to remove some of the toxins, but there's just so much coming from so many different angles. So whether it's biotoxins or heavy metals, whatever it is for the individual that they've been exposed to and have too much of in their system, then we move through the body detox. And then the last phase is brain. And so we are able to cross through that blood-brain barrier and pull those toxins from the brain cells as well, because there's actually some different heavy metals that will take 4 generations to remove from your body because of that blood-brain barrier. And so with the, detox that we're doing at the cellular level and crossing through that blood-brain barrier, we're actually setting people up for success so that their children can be happy and healthy and their children's children can be happy and healthy, because there's so many symptoms that present themselves with those toxins.
I like that you mentioned the fact that there are so many toxins coming at us all the time, even through the products that we use and things like that, because I remember hearing years ago, and I might be associating this in my mind with when cleanses were like a really huge thing, but that whole idea of purposely detoxing your body. I remember there were all these articles coming out saying, don't do it. You don't need to detox. Your body's already set up to do that, blah, blah, blah. And I understand there's probably a right way to detox and a wrong way to detox. So that still needs to be taken into consideration. But I don't think at the time people were talking about the toxins and the products that we tend to use. Like all the major products out there are not always clean and non-toxic and 100% safe for us, even if it's stuff that we've gotten used to. And some people say like, oh, but they've been using that for however long and how many decades, and it's fine. I'm like, are you sure? Are you sure it's fine? How do you know? I don't believe you. I'm going to use my non-toxic stuff. Thank you very much. So
start Googling those ingredients on those products that you've used for years and years. And if you can't pronounce them, it's not a good sign. Most products are loaded with various different chemicals, and that's not even looking at the food that we eat as well, because unless you're eating organic, you're likely consuming the glyphosate, and that compounds with the other toxins and heavy metals, and it destroys our digestive tract,
Mm-hmm.
and that's where our immune system's created. And it's just this big loop
I
that
know.
you have to step out of at some point, but also that holistic healing, you have to look at addressing all of those aspects to truly have your body working for you optimally.
Mm-hmm. And once you open that door and you realize what's in everything and how prevalent all of these toxins are, it can feel a little overwhelming. Like, oh my God, it's everywhere. What do I do? Do you have people who end up feeling overwhelmed? And like for me, I can reach a point where if I'm too overwhelmed, I might shut down and just give up. So do you have ways or, things that you
Yeah.
recommend for people to start without feeling like they need to do a complete overhaul? At least not overnight, I should say.
Yeah. And this is such a great question to ask too, because I too share that. I think we talked about it in the beginning, right? Like if you're committed, you're
Yeah.
truly committed. So I want to know everything that I can know and do as much as I can do as quickly as I can. And that can be so overwhelming for people. So coming into it, I always tell people, take it 1 week at a time. Are you replacing, the oil that you eat and cook with and getting rid of the vegetable oil and buying a coconut oil at the grocery store on your next store run? Like take it store run by store run and or when you run out of deodorant, buy a healthy deodorant, replace it the next time that you need one. So just taking those steps one at a time, because they add up. And over the course of a few months, you'll be shocked at how much you've already shifted in your household with the healthier products.
Mm-hmm.
And so I really just encourage people to not expect to go through your whole kitchen and throw everything away and start over, but just to work it in and integrate it as a new lifestyle over time. It's kind
Yeah.
of like that lifestyle versus diet mentality. The
Right.
diet makes you think that you're lacking things and you're missing out on things, and it's some extreme change and it's such a shock to the system.
Yeah.
Versus the lifestyle, you're building those healthy habits one at a time.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's really my approach with people, is to keep it little and let those one steps add up to being at the top of the mountain and have conquered it.
Yeah. I've been a little sneaky lately with some newer, not the products themselves aren't new, but new to me, non-toxic products that I found. And I just didn't really tell my husband. I just started switching things out. I'm like, this is what we use now. And he's like, okay. And he actually really likes it. So it worked out. But I'm like, yep, this is our shampoo now. This is our dish soap. This is that.
Yeah, so many of those products are great. And you do start feeling better too. And that's the other
Yeah.
thing for people, is when they notice that smell of bleach is, horrible, and they're repulsed by it, where before they had been conditioned that it was just normal.
Mm-hmm.
They start noticing, I'm feeling better. I'm not so tired. I'm not having the symptoms that I was having, or my anxiety is a little less, however that's showing up for them. Then once you get to that point, they have such an easier time moving forward with it.
Yeah.
But so many of the products, like you identified, they're great. And you don't notice unless you're really looking at the label or the bottle and
Right.
see that it is different.
You made me think of like even something like that clean laundry smell. It used to be like, oh, that's so cool that, that clean laundry smell will last for a week with this product. I'm like, that's not good. Now that I know, like, you don't want that. That's not good. The first time I started using one of my non-toxic laundry detergents, there was literally like no clean laundry smell. Like it didn't smell dirty, but it didn't have that familiar like laundry scent when it came out of the dryer. But I'm like, well, it doesn't smell dirty, so it's fine. And now I'm used to it. And now if I do smell that, like, I think when my sister made some cloth masks for us at the beginning of the whole, thing that we shall not talk about from last year, she washed them for us before she gave them to us. And, put it over my face. And I'm like, oh God, I'm like, what is that? What does that smell? like, no, I don't like this. Wash it again with my stuff. I don't like this.
It does. It smells so strong when you've gotten away from it. And then you go back to it. It is undeniable. A great hack. So there's so many hacks too, right? Like there's natural things you can switch out for nearly everything that isn't, natural for those chemical products. A lot of people like to put essential oils on the wool dryer balls. If
Oh,
you
yeah.
switch
Yep.
your dryer sheets to the wool dryer balls, and then you still get that scent in your laundry, but it's a healthy scent and it's
Yeah.
coming from a healthy source. So there's, all of those hacks, as I call them, for
Right.
people so they can swap naturally. And as I say that every product has a great replacement, I do have to admit that I struggled really badly switching over to deodorant because
Oh,
I
yeah.
thought in my mind, yeah, when I first started, I thought in my mind that as long as I removed all the sources of the toxins from my life, I wouldn't, detox wouldn't need to be done for me because I'm not exposed to as many anymore. And then I moved forward into getting certified and realized my theory was very incorrect because those toxins linger in those cells, like I've already
Oh,
mentioned.
yeah.
But anyway, I discovered in my own personal detox experience that the deodorant was not the problem. The actual odor was a symptom of
Oh.
the detoxing that needed to happen. And after I got through the detox process, I'm like, oh, hey, my deodorant does work really well all day long after all.
Oh, wow.
So yeah, between the two, the actual detoxing process and then finding those natural products, it's amazing how easily it is to replace everything that we're used to using
Yeah.
that you can find at the store. And I do have to say and give a lot of credit to, I feel like people maybe voting through their dollars, wanting that healthier lifestyle. These products are becoming easier and more accessible
Yeah.
to get than years ago when I started this process. I know just even going to chain stores, you usually have options of natural products without getting too far into greenwashing and things that are
Right.
labeled natural that
That's a
aren't
whole other
truly,
topic.
but
Yeah.
it really is.
We could do a whole podcast just on that. Before we wrap up, I know it feels like we're probably jumping around a little bit, but I want to make sure I hit a couple of the things that I am very interested in with you. So you mentioned when we were first talking about past lives and soul retrieval, and I don't even honestly know how to frame a question around that, but can you talk about that topic a little bit and how that's involved in all of this process?
Yeah. So, of course, this is something, the beautiful part of HBLU, again, that muscle testing is what leads us through a session. So, whether someone has a past life healing that needs to occur is all identified from within, which is amazing because I really focus on meeting people where they are. And not all belief systems support a past life, experience, whatever that is. And so, I talk about that as the experience, the memories that your soul have before coming into this embodiment. And if someone needs to heal something from that soul memory or soul experience that they've had prior to now, their muscle testing says so. And it's not, me asserting that for someone
Sure.
else. And so there's such a beautiful level of rapport that is built with people when they're identifying their own patterns coming up. What that looks like for people can be all sorts of different. I've worked with an individual where we did past life healing that was creating anxiety for her. And I've worked with another individual who had this interesting choking thing happen
Oh.
kind of in the middle of the night where they'd wake up choking on kind of their saliva and coughing and memories of having drowned it in a past life
Oh,
and working through
wow.
that process with, to what we call timeline therapy. So going back in time and healing the trauma from the soul. And if their soul in that trauma did fragment at that time, then they're able to retrieve and integrate that part of their soul and then come back on their timeline to present. I mean, just in short, that's
Right. Yeah.
a little bit of a flavor of how that process works.
Clearly, that's very much more involved. That sounds very involved, but I really like that. I like what you're explaining here. So,
Yeah. So just really working with all aspects of our being, whether it's phobias we've picked up in this lifetime or traumas that we've experienced in this lifetime, to, as we already talked about, the enneagram and healing that aspect of our soul from the personality structure to any past life experiences that their soul has brought into this embodiment for them to become aware of and to be able to evolve and grow through acknowledging. Because as we heal any aspect of ourselves with HBLU, my favorite part of the process is at the end, and it's called collecting the learnings. And so we connect in with our higher self, our consciousness, our feelings, like all aspects of ourselves, to then identify what is it that I have learned from doing this healing. And it really helps individuals tune into how they're evolving, how they're growing, how this healing is going to show up for them moving forward.
So with you mentioning the end like that, is there a certain length of time that people tend to go through this modality, like a certain number of sessions they would have to do? Or is that, again, something that's kind of individually directed? Or like, is it an ongoing process where people continue to come back? Or how does the client aspect of it work?
That's a great question. So much like Reiki, it's not usually a one and done unless someone wants that to be their experience.
Okay.
Especially with working with the totality of our being, it's hard to heal all levels of ourselves and all aspects of ourselves, in one session, if you will. So I personally, there are colleagues that, package their services differently. I, working as a transformation coach, have different packages that I offer people, and I do a consultation up front with them to find out what is it that they're really wanting to focus on and what is their main priority. And then depending upon what topic they're really wanting to address gives me a good idea of, the shorter package would be a good option for you to start. Like if someone comes to me, for instance, and they just want to address their anxiety, then I suggest that they start with the 6-session package, because if it's just anxiety, we're going to make progress with that within the shorter time frame. But if people are struggling with relationship issues or having never felt fulfilled in their career and not knowing what their purpose is here, what they should be doing, then I encourage one of the longer programs, the transformation packages. So it's a bit of meeting people where they are, understanding what is it that they want to work on, and also, how do I say this, like the level of personal growth that they desire, if it's a sprint for them versus a marathon. And for me personally, I've been utilizing energy psychology for 10 years now, because being those layered beings, and as I grow and evolve, there's a new goal, there's something new I want to accomplish. And so it just allows me to embrace that smoother without those hurdles, without the struggle. And so, I would say it's something that I plan to embrace for the rest of my time here in this lifetime for sure. But for each person, that's different. And so I just meet people where they are.
I like that. But I do think that helps encapsulate that idea that this all is about the journey. We're not necessarily going to reach this end level point where everything is perfect and we never have to work on ourselves ever again. There's always going to be more growing to do. There's always room. Like things are going to get better, but there's always going to be room for more. And that, in my opinion, that's a good thing. I think that's a good thing.
I certainly share that perspective with you. I definitely live the lifestyle the same as well. And actually learning that there was no destination was one of my personal development learnings that I needed to attain, because I always thought, I'm going to be happy when I get to, I'm going to be satisfied with myself when I'm finally doing this or at this place, or I've achieved something or I've obtained something. And then there was finally that realization and knowingness that it's all the journey.
Yeah.
All of it. It's just the journey.
I know, because no one showed up with my trophy for any of the other levels I've reached yet. So how do you know when you've even completed the level? So,
yeah, it's in the eye of the beholder, isn't it?
Absolutely. Well, this has been really awesome. I have loved every point that we have touched on. I think it's all been super important and hopefully really resonating with everyone who's listening to this podcast. So really thank you so much for coming on and sharing what this is all about and how this works and how people can heal. So that said, why don't you let everyone know how they can find you and connect with you?
I'm in several different places.
Okay.
So, one of the coolest things I do, I feel like, is I am in Facebook on a group. It's called the Sacred Healing Project. And I have collaborated with 3 other practitioners. There's a crystal healer, there is a Reiki master, and there's an intuitive coach. And I give 30 to 60-minute live healing sessions every Wednesday evening. And each of the practitioners go live through Facebook one day of the week. And then we have guest practitioners coming in there as well. So hopefully, Carrie, you will be joining us sometime
That
soon.
would be awesome.
Yeah. And it's such a great place for people who are on that spiritual journey, that awakening journey, the personal development journey, because they're getting tangible tools, protocols, if you will, exercises that they can apply to their life. And they also have access to each of us while we're live to ask whatever questions, or to even when they're watching the content that's recorded, to ask those questions that they need the support with to help them along their way. So that's one of the coolest places that people can find me, just through Sacred Healing Project on Facebook. I also have my business page on Facebook, and I do different series. I have an immune support series there. I have some weight loss tips, some weight loss myths. I do some different series like that to support people through some of the physical functional medicine and detox things that I practice. And I also have my website, www.fiercelyradiantsoul.com.
Well, thank you again so much, Janessa. This has been awesome.
Thank you, Carrie. I've really appreciated sharing this space with you and joining you here today.
I know I say this at the end of every interview, but that was awesome. I need a bigger vocabulary. It's fine. But I hope that you got a lot out of what Janessa was saying, a lot of the points that she made. I know we touched on so many different things, everything from the enneagram, personalities, your soul, past lives, detoxing the physical body. There was a lot there. This is a very wide-ranging modality, and I'm sure we could go even more in depth into every aspect of it. But I really just love the fact that everything is so holistic and focusing on healing and addressing all aspects of the person. Like we were saying, you can't just fix one area and expect that everything's going to run smoothly, because if one other area is falling apart and just isn't being addressed for whatever reason, there are still going to be issues. So I love that this modality addresses the whole person. If this is something that sounded interesting to you, if it sounded like something that you feel called to do, that it would be helpful for you, if you're curious about it, please go ahead and connect with Janessa and start that journey. I will have all of her links in the show notes for you to easily find and connect with her. I plan on hopping into that Facebook group as well. Actually, by the time this is released, I will have already hopped in. As always, I would love to invite you to connect with me as well if you haven't already. You are more than welcome to jump into my group as well, called The Energy Within, where I go live as often as I can to do group Reiki sessions, live card pulls, meditations, and there's of course also the fitness aspect, where you can jump into my virtual fitness studio, where we are doing live Turbo Kick and PiYo classes. I would also love to invite you to come do a Reiki session with me. By the time you hear this episode, I will have already started my master level course, my master level journey. And That means that at the end of that journey, I will be able to conduct full Reiki sessions for you. And I do include a card pull at the end of that. So Reiki, if you don't know what it is, I encourage you to go back to my episode called What is Reiki? You can also listen to the episode I did with my teacher, Vanessa Love. That episode is titled Awaken the Healer and Manifestor Within, which is also the name of her course. But you can listen to those episodes to give you a deeper understanding of what Reiki is and how it can be helpful for you. Just know that it is another modality that can help on all levels. I focus more so on the emotional and the spiritual level, but there can definitely be physical aspects that come up and are able to start healing with that. And I know people who have experienced that, myself included. So check out the links for everything that I have mentioned here in the show notes, whichever one is calling out to you the most. Start there. Don't be overwhelmed. Take baby steps. And if you liked this episode, please share it. Go ahead and take a screenshot, do a screen flow, share some audio, tag me, tag Janessa. Let us know what you liked, what resonated with you, and help spread the message to more people. Thank you as always for listening, and I'll see you next time.